Um, so we've been, this has been a little series we started last week talking about the moving into this period of the season where the season of our year where we talk about letting go, emptying out as a part of the spiritual journey, how we always in this life of faith find ourselves both with the need at times to enter in and say yes and open up, and then at times to empty out and to shed and to let go. And this year, I'm using a little model of consciousness from a guy named Samuel Bois, who developed a model of human consciousness. It has 7 different components. And I started last week talking about his idea that in every moment as we're paying attention and experiencing life, part of the way that we're making meaning has to do with how we've experienced the past. And the particular dynamics of our particular past are a part of how we are experiencing this moment. You know what to do right now, which is shut up and sit down because, no, I'm just kidding, yeah. Because in the past, you've been somewhere where that was the thing. You come in, you know that's the experience. Somebody who hasn't had that, like our little friend, is she still here? She's still here. Is still figuring that out. She doesn't have that past that tells her that's, and it's awesome. Not that you should start doing that, but that's awesome. And so there's that. And then today I want to talk a little bit about anticipated future. Another part of Bois' model of our human consciousness is that we are continually focused with some anticipation of what is to come. So, for instance, though your past may inform how you expect this moment to be, it will also be a part of kind of informing what you expect to come. And so at some point in the next 5 or 10 minutes, you are probably expecting something to happen between here and here. In other words, that if you've had an experience of being in a place like this where there's been a guy standing up talking like I'm talking right now, your anticipated future is shaped by what you've experienced in the past, but projecting onto what's happening right now. So, for instance, if in the past you've heard people doing what I'm doing right now, and it bored you to tears, or perhaps even upset you horribly, then that will probably be shaping how you're experiencing this moment, your anticipation. If I don't upset you horribly or bore you to tears, I may totally overdo your expectations, and you may love me. Or those expectations may be so rich, so intense, that they actually become more of what you're focused on than what I'm putting out right now. In other words, there may be nothing I can do. I may be brilliant, but you will hear what you expected to hear. You'll experience what you expected to experience. It's possible that your anticipation of the future may be so strong in your immediate consciousness, your immediate awareness, that you really don't see what's happening now. You only see how it did or did not fit. And that which doesn't fit, for some of us, is immediately ejected and not even allowed into the consciousness. So a part of what Bois' idea was is that there are aspects of our experience when we think of our memory and our imagined future that have impact on the experience of every moment, how I'm making meaning out of the moment. If I don't know the words that Charles is using right now, these words that he's using, let's say I only know about 1 out of every 3, that's going to impact my capacity to see anything in what he's saying. And so how is it that memory and imagination come to play in the experience of the moment? Your personal life experience is setting you up for anticipation and limits at times what you're experiencing in the here and now. In the prayer time, one of the things that I tried to kind of bring up is this idea that we have the capacity to reflect on how we reflect. This is kind of a new thing in human consciousness. We have the capacity not only to have moments where we reflect on what our body just did. I can think, oh, yeah, I just did that. But we have a way to kind of put a mirror to the mirror of our experience by saying and noticing how I reacted to what I reacted to. In other words, there are times where the capacity to be in the process of participating in life and noticing that I only got what I was expecting there is a little bit of a higher development of consciousness than the consciousness that simply is reacting to what happened. How do you develop more of that capacity to see that? Bois' model is kind of like a little tool for that for me. What I notice is there are times when I ask myself, what was I expecting? And how is it that my anticipation of what should happen limits my experience and ability to be present with what is happening? It's a powerful moment of insight for me. What if I were to tell you that 10 seconds from now, everyone in the room will be jumping up and down, screaming at the top of their lungs? Would you believe it? Is it possible? Okay. But it would not be in what you would expect, right? What if I were to tell you that Anne and I, 5 seconds from now, are going to dance a waltz around this table? Yeah, you wouldn't believe that because I don't know how to waltz. But think about how there are so many possibilities in this moment. This moment right now is so full of potential, of anything. Anything could happen right now in this moment. But we limit what could happen in this moment. Why? I don't know. We like stability. We like things to kind of be the way we expect them to be. We don't like things to be too crazy. We don't like things to go in and out, in and out. We like to know what we're going to get when we walk through that door. We like to get what we expect. And yet, getting what you expect, always getting what you expect, is boring. Isn't it? So how is it that abundant life, wholeness in life, is limited by our anticipating a future that will always be the same because our expectations that we brought to it are always the same? Do you believe what I'm saying to you? Do you believe this is kind of a truth of our lives that we should do that? We should recognize some of this and maybe open ourselves up to different things from time to time. Recognize our expectations are limiting how we're entering into this particular moment. Do you buy into that? If we were going to let this moment just be this moment and drop our expectations of what's supposed to happen next, what do you want to do? What would you feel like doing? How would you enter into this moment differently? If instead of already blurring it with that expectation, it was just here, it's right now, this moment, and you can do anything you want. Well, not anything. Well, you can do anything you want, but some people may carry you away if you do them. So I carry this point a little far for a reason. If in our spiritual journey there's anything I believe that kind of shuts things down for us in our own sense of wholeness, our sense of entering fully into life, it's that we sometimes find ourselves with a sense of always this flow. What has been will always be. In this sense, it's those moments that disrupt us that are the accidents and the detours and the losses, the painful losses, that when we just allow them to disrupt our patterns, become cracks in the wall, become openings for growth, become invitations for occasionally dropping the insulation that keeps us from experiencing life in a much more rich way. But we don't have to wait for losses and interruptions to take a step into that journey. The word, the via negativa that we talk about this time of year, this path, the spiritual path of emptying out, we can become practiced at emptying ourselves occasionally, not always, but occasionally, of the lens that is trying to make this moment just like the last moment. We can practice reducing that and opening ourselves up to what is more fully happening in the present. That spiritual practice, I believe, is a big part of the teaching of many different spiritual traditions. We talk about the sacred presence, being in the now. We talk about paying attention as being a big part of spiritual experience. Mindfulness. And a big part of all of that has to do with how we are personally managing our sense of expectation and the filters that that wants to bring to the moment. Who would you notice in this room? Who would you look at? Who would you interact with? You see, if you didn't arrive here with a certain sense of expectation of who you were going to talk to, who you were going to sit with, right? How would you experience this moment if the words that I was speaking, you didn't already have an expectation that they would be something that would feel good, maybe tweak a few little bones in your consciousness, but that would leave you fairly unchanged? What if your expectation was that even 3 words from a stranger could transform your life? Do you see what I mean by we come with preset limits? Our expected anticipation of what we're going to get from this moment, we are determining what we will get from this moment by how we have predefined our expectation of what will happen and the response we will have to it. Can you imagine, just for a moment, having a response to this service, just this moment, that your life would never be the same again? Can you imagine that? Could you open yourself and be welcome? Welcome in the possibility that your life could be much more rich and dynamic. Maybe it already is. Maybe you've just been so defined by your perspective that you haven't noticed that your life is incredibly rich, incredibly blessed, incredibly gifted. If we just take off the blinders of the expectations of what we thought it was supposed to be and open ourselves up to allowing things to transform us, which requires the capacity to look beyond the filters that we always look through. But we all have that capacity within us. It's a bit of grace that we all do. I want to say this is, as we end this moment together of exploring our sense of how the future defines what we experience in the moment, you may find yourself feeling a little bit more mindful right now by just considering some of these ideas. Sometimes it just kind of awakens us to be a little more present with the people around us, to be a little bit more mindful of our own experience, and to the possibility, that the potential in the moment that we have limited. It is possible that your life could change in the next 10 minutes. It is possible that you could all be standing on your feet, hugging each other in 10 minutes. That it was almost as if tongues of fire came down from the ceiling and rested on everyone's hearts, so that we had such a warming of loving that everyone felt such a safety and connection. It's possible that the expectations that we have brought to this moment are incomplete, and something much bigger can happen. I would imagine that is probably what happened for Jesus. Jesus probably began to experience that the potential for what could be was much greater than what people had allowed themselves to see. And there was a moment where he gathered all of the disciples together on the Passover, and they had a moment of mindfulness where they looked at their lives and the gift of life in a different way. Lynn Deloney is going to come and lead us through the celebration of that feast, that mindful feast. And I invite you to join in as people all over the world are joining in that World Communion Day today. And as Lynn comes, I want to just let you know that this table, this love feast, is not limited to anyone. Everyone's invited to join in the feast of love.